development is crucial to keep residential and industrial taxes in balance. Milton has averaged 2 million square feet of non-residential development each year over the last 5 years. How will you attract new businesses and jobs to Milton?
Definitely. As I mentioned, like as a business owner, I know that the small businesses people how they suffer because we are not getting any incentive from the town. Like we are paying highly that rent for to the town or to the landlord, but we are not getting any kind of incentive. Why we are not why we're not getting any kind of business, or especially that global branded, just because of we have a high rent over here. So when we're gonna work on that, definitely we need, when we're gonna give some that attraction incentive, then we're gonna promote those businesses to our town. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
I think we need to attract the right jobs. We do have a ratio of jobs to employment, but a lot of the jobs in Milton are in warehousing and distribution. A lot of people can't afford to work in Milton because the jobs right now are not paying a salary to support the higher property values in Milton. So looking for better jobs in the Dairy Green Business Park. I was one of the co-chairs for the Milton Economic Advisory Committee for 4 years, working on partnering with the future MEV to look for future innovation in Milton, making sure we're attracting the right jobs and not just settling for any jobs. The Dairy Green Business Park is our one-time opportunity. We need to make sure we're having premium jobs in there, and we're not just looking for large distribution warehouses that have property taxes. We also need higher paying jobs in Milton. Sometimes we sell ourselves short, looking for short-term opportunities to fill out that space. Once the Dairy Green Business Park is gone, it's gone. It's a premium space. It has 401, has 407. We need to make sure we have the right development there.
Thank you. Rob?
I use something called the GREAT approach, which is growth, roads, employment, academia, and transportation. If you have those 5 pillars, being in business myself, you tend to create the environment that attracts small business. If you can create that environment, they will start to come. The one great jewel we have here in town is the Dairy Green Business Park. It's supposed to employ up to 17,500 people. If we do it right the first time and make sure that the type and right-sized businesses are going in there, we should be able to reduce the amount of traffic congestion in this town. We should also be able to create the proper tax base. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rick will be the first one to respond to this question. We are heading into a reassessment of residential properties by impact, and most properties will rise in value. Therefore, property taxes will rise. What rate of increase or decrease for residential property tax is acceptable to you, and how will you ensure this rate is achieved?
So that sort of seems like a trick question. One of the things when I door knock is people want a better services in Milton, but sometimes they don't always want to pay for those better services. We have a lot of financial sustainability challenges in Milton. One of them is we've been rating our financial reserves to pay for our operating expenses. That's not financial sustainability. That's poor planning. We've been balancing our budget, stealing from our savings. We need to think about more long-term decision-making on our financial decisions, and don't just look at the short term. Milton's my home. It's where my children are going to grow up, where I'm going to stay long-term. I want to make sure we're making financial decisions for the long term, and spending our reserves to keep property taxes artificially low is not the right answer. We do have the lowest taxes, and I want to make sure we keep the lowest taxes, but not at the cost of our future.
Okay, thank you. Rob, what rate of increase or decrease for residential property tax is acceptable to you, and how will you ensure this rate is achieved?
The biggest problem that we have in Milton is our ratios are completely off. So our living to work ratio is skewed to an 80-20%. It's actually supposed to be more like 40-60. I think what's going to occur very, very soon is with all the business that we're going to see coming to Milton, and there's going to be a lot of it, not only because we have the post-secondary education coming here, but we also have the advanced manufacturing supercluster coming here. Not a lot of people have talked about that because they don't know about it. It's another committee that I sit on, but there were 6 locations across Canada that were given a pot to basically work with that incubates high-tech companies. The advanced manufacturing supercluster was awarded to the Kitchener-Waterloo, Toronto area, and Milton is right in the middle of that. We're getting part of that seed money. With that, with the education and the Dairy Green Business Park, we're going to start getting back into that 60-40 split. And at that point, we should start looking at how we offer services to the community, because a lot of it right now doesn't seem to be working.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so practically, I'm gonna see that like in a different way. Because like the first thing we have to see that like we have to analysis like that where our brain is. So, for example, like let's say let's say I have a bottle, and if I'm gonna poke it from the 10 different ways, can we fill it up? No, we cannot. Just because, and we're definitely gonna ask it like keep filling it, but its drain never gonna end up. So we have to see our that financial statement where we have a drain, like where we are wasting our money. So that's why when we're gonna follow these things, definitely we're gonna have a lower tax rate. Definitely we're gonna give some incentive to that local homeowners. This is the thing which I'm gonna definitely follow up. Thank you.
Thank you. This will go to Rob to answer first, as Places to Grow legislation directs municipalities. Hang on. No. Sorry, folks, wrong one. Milton is a multicultural community. And a resident asks, how would you make Milton welcoming to various cultural communities?
Well, that's a great question. I grew up in East York. I lived right on the Greek village, and grew up in a very multicultural school system when I was young. And the more and more that I see Milton growing in the right direction, the more and more I like the fact that we have cultural diversity. We have some great strengths. We should learn from each other, and having those things brought back. I know years ago that we actually had some multicultural days downtown, and we saw those kind of disappear over time, and now they're talking about bringing them back. Something was brought to us not that long ago saying that they're interested in doing it again. I say bring it. It brings cultural diversity, it brings knowledge, it brings community, and I think they're all important.
Thank you. Yes.
So definitely I'm going to reach out to the different communities to promote local events, to promote local, as a downtown we always have some kind of event, but as a multiculturalism, like definitely I'm going to promote, I'm going to reach out these people, and definitely I'm going to support to come out and have some kind of event over there. So this way we can learn about different cultures. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Rick?
Multicultural is a great strength in Milton. One thing I admire is the different communities in Milton look after one another and they help one another. When I was vice president of the Italian Canadian Club in Milton, some Islamic community members came and volunteered at the Italian Center, and that works vice versa. In Milton, you see different cultural groups reaching out and helping one another, building a very inclusive community where people care about one another. It doesn't depend on what culture, what community you're in. I was the MC of Culture Days last year. I really enjoyed going to that last night. The different communities and cultures in Milton, they look after each other. They care for each other. They see Milton as one town, one larger community. We need to remember our children and continue that. We have a great future ahead of us when we're all looking after one another. We value our communities and our cultures, but at the same time, we help one another.
Thank you. This question is going to Usman first. What will you do to ensure safety in Milton when cannabis becomes legal?
Okay, so very good question. We cannot stop it. First of all, we're definitely going to welcome it, but we can intervene it with we're definitely going to enforce the bylaws. We're definitely going to use our special forces for that. So cannabis is not bad, but too much cannabis is bad. It's like gambling is not bad, too much gambling is bad. So definitely we cannot stop it. It's legal. It's federal. So definitely I'm gonna work with the special law enforcement to work on that for the safety hazard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rick?
So how are we going to ensure safety in Milton when cannabis comes? I don't see cannabis as a drug that's causing violence or a crime in Milton. Cannabis is being legalized in Canada, and I have not seen that as a safety factor in the town of Milton. We do want to make sure it's not used by children, not necessarily used for youth. That's from a health perspective. But from a safety perspective, I think there's more concerns about alcohol in our town. I think we need to think about safety in alcohol more than we need to think about safety in cannabis.
Thank you. Rob?
Yeah, cannabis issue came up at AMO. Of course, that was the big talk in Ottawa this year, and I was there for all 5 of the sessions. It was very interesting. One of the big things, I don't think it will be so much on the illegal use. Obviously, it's not going to be illegal anymore, but it did get into safety issues. And one of the safety issues that I, at the time, didn't even think of is the fact that you'll be allowed to grow 4 plants per household. That's per dwelling. And one of the things that was brought up is if one of our workers goes in to inspect one of these houses and there's black mold, who pays for that $6,000 ventilator mask? That is a big cost. And when you start looking at that on the tax base and you're looking at $100,000 to $200,000 just for extra equipment to keep our workforce safe, then that money has to come from somewhere. I think it's important to start looking at if we can tax it, we can control it, we can regulate it, and we can also zone it. We have to make sure that we're part of that.
Okay, thank you very much. This is an important process to the people of Milton, and I want to thank the 3 candidates up here for their participation today.